Okay, welcome everybody to today's webinar on Microsoft Power Apps. It's great to see so many past and current clients on the call, as well as some new faces. So thank you all for joining. You're very welcome. My name is Patrick Staff, and I'll be hosting the session for today. So first off, just do some housekeeping. This session will be recorded and made available to you all afterwards. So if anybody wants to turn off their cameras now, and I'll ask you all to mute as well during the session. So I will cover what Power Apps are, the benefits, features, and how Irish businesses can leverage them for digital transformation in the first section. And then I'll hand over to my colleague Lisa, and she'll take you through some studies, case studies, and demonstrations of the Power Apps that we deploy for our clients. So I would ask you all that if you have any questions, you can please add them to the chat, and myself and Lisa will either answer them at the end of the session, or if we have some time during the session, we'll answer them then. And then just some background. So these series of webinars that we've hosted previously and this one today have come off the feedback from our customers over the last year on what Microsoft solutions we could provide for them. So that's the basis as to why we've made this webinar for today. So if Lisa, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next slide, I'll just introduce the team. So before we dive into the content, this is our LBS digital team. Our pictures are up there. So Mark is our digital director. He focuses on helping businesses embrace new technologies. Mark unfortunately can't attend today, but we can't feel too sorry for him. He's on annual leave in sunny Mexico at the minute, so he's living a good life. Then there's myself. I'm a digital consultant here, so I specialize in data analytics, so mainly Microsoft Power BI. Which you might have seen in their last webinar. I did some demonstrations there, but I also help out with creating Microsoft Power Apps and other Microsoft applications. And then finally, we have Lisa Finn, who is our Power Apps expert. She does a lot of work with our clients using the Power Platforms, and she's created a number of different applications, which you'll get to see today. So together with myself and Lisa, we'll guide you through it. So our next slide, thanks Lisa, is on the Microsoft 365 Small Business License. So this license is tailored to small and medium-sized businesses, and it includes essential tools that you probably already know, like Microsoft Word, Excel, Outlook, and Teams. It's an affordable and scalable license, and it's very cost-effective. So most businesses already deploy this license, but it's key that this license, it's crucial for deploying Microsoft Power Apps, which are a low-code platform for building these custom apps that we're going to show you today. So making sure that you have this license is an essential first step. So if you could go on to the next slide, please, Lisa. So a small bit of background about the Microsoft Power Platform. So the Microsoft Power Platform is a suite of tools designed to help businesses analyze data, automate processes, and create custom solutions such as Power Apps with very low coding. So here are three of the main ones: SharePoint, Power Apps, and Power Automate. So SharePoint allows you to create, manage, and share content and resources. So some of you might be already using SharePoint within your businesses. Then Power Apps, which is what we're going to cover today, allows you to create custom applications for your own business needs with virtually no real coding. It's called low code, very simple to use. And then there's Power Automate, which allows you to automate workflows. So for instance, for Power Apps, if you wanted to send notifications after a certain action, you do this through Power Automate and then embed them within your app. So if we go on to the next slide, please, Lisa. So what are Microsoft Power Apps? Microsoft Power Apps, as I said, are a low-code platform that empowers organizations to create custom apps rapidly, which can address such business needs such as automating processes, improving data management, or enhancing customer interactions. For businesses in Ireland, Power Apps presents a significant opportunity to modernize operations, reduce manual tasks, and drive innovation. So throughout this webinar, we'll explore how Irish businesses can leverage this technology to stay competitive. So if we go on to the next one, Lisa, I'll just talk about some of the advantages of why you would choose Power Apps. So firstly, rapid development, as I mentioned. So with Power Apps, you can create fully functional apps within days if they're not too complex, even ours, then it's very cost effective. So when you have a Microsoft 365 license, that's essentially the only cost. So it reduces third-party software company costs and paying for maintenance or upgrades on any applications you have. So then there's mobile and desktop readiness. So all of the apps that we create could be used on desktops, mobiles, tablets throughout your different organizations. And they'll run on all of these. Okay, and then seamless integration. So Power Apps integrate effortlessly with any Microsoft tool, as well as hundreds of external services. So this just means your Outlook, Power BI, Excel's, lists, they all integrate with the custom applications that we can build. So if we click onto the next slide, then I'll just talk about a few more benefits. Thanks, Lisa. So these four are probably the biggest ones. So increased agility, operational efficiency, data-driven decision-making, and cost savings. So increased agility. Power Apps allows businesses to rapidly develop and deploy applications, as I've said previously. Then efficiency, by automating workflows and digitizing tasks through Power Apps, businesses can seamlessly operate and reduce errors and free up employees' time, which is a big one that we see, freeing up employees to do other kinds of work. And then data-driven decisions. Power Apps can collect and analyze data in real time, providing valuable insights that helps decision makers. And again, cost effectiveness. Power Apps offers cost-effective alternatives to third-party costs for custom applications. So that's a bit on the background. I'm just going to hand you back over to Lisa now, and she's going to go through some of the case studies and some of the applications, so you can see it firsthand.
Thanks, Pat. Okay, so guys, thanks, as Pat said already, for coming along today. It's great to see so many different clients with us. Some of them are obviously familiar with the work that I do already, and some of you guys are new, so it's lovely to meet you, even if it is online. So as Pat said, I look after the digital side of things all around the Microsoft Power Apps. And what we do is we are building solutions using all the suite of applications that are available to you as part of your Microsoft 365 license. So the next set of use case scenarios that we're going to go through, I will have built all of them using, as I said, that suite of products. So the main thing to get out of today is that for anybody that is running a Microsoft small business license, there is huge potential in the applications that you have access to, as Pat said, to help you drive efficiencies in your business. And what we find is that a lot of our clients, yes, they have ERP systems, which are fantastic for helping them manage that quote to cash process. However, as we all know, there's all these admin functions or support functions and processes that are happening around the core ERP. And that's where we're losing time. That's where we need to really try and drive some efficiencies. And Microsoft, using these solutions, really helps you do that. So we'll go through the first use case scenario, which is around an AP approval process. So this particular client was very heavily reliant on email when it came to getting POs signed off. They were printing off emails and they were bringing them into, the financial director for them to read through the emails and sign them off. And then that individual was going back then and trying to raise POs and keep track of what was raised, what wasn't raised, all that sort of stuff. So as you can see from the slide, when we look at the current process, was really heavily reliant on email. The workflow management involved somebody getting up and walking into somebody else's office. And though that is great for our steps, it's not really great in terms of efficiency. There was no real time updates. So at any point in time, you couldn't see potentially how many POs you had outstanding or that side of things. And of course, wasting time printing, which we're all trying to get away from at the moment. So the solution I'll show you in a minute involves a combination of different things, but the main thing is that we have used SharePoint to manage our document library side of things. We have used a Power Apps form to give us a nice user interface for the user that is requesting the PO in the first place. And then we've used Power Automate for our workflow automations. So by the end of it, there was quite a lot of benefits, and hopefully you'll see that from the demo video that I will show you in a second. There was emails reduced. Suddenly now we had real-time data to manage actions and report on. We had this greater visibility on requests and approvals, so we could even see the type of approvals that were coming through, whether they were accepted or rejected, what category of PO they were for, things like that. So overall, not only did they get all these benefits, they're maximising the potential of the Microsoft licenses that they already had purchased. So what I'll do is I'll just flick over to the next slide and I'll play a short clip to show you the demo, and we'll just talk through it. So you can see here is the SharePoint site. They've accessed the purchase order request form, which can be branded and color coded depending on what you want to do. They're entering in the PO description. The next is the supplier. So this is a pre-populated list of supplier details with your own suppliers, and then they're selecting a PO type and they're putting in a cost. Now, dependent on the cost and maybe the PO type, that's what's driving the business logic in the background to trigger the workflow. So if you've put, for example, 2,000 in, that might require a sign-off process of 2 people. Or if it's a particular category of PO, it may only go to an individual. So what you'll see is the next thing that happens once that person has triggered that PO request is it has gone in automatically and created a PO document within the SharePoint library. So you can see all my different PO documents here. I'm using metadata to help me sort them just there on the screen, and the one I've just created has now appeared at the top. You can see it's showing the supplier in the metadata, it's showing the cost, and it's showing its pending approval at this point because nobody has approved it. And I just showing you there, these are all customizable, the outputs, as I said, in terms of colours and branding. And for people where they don't have an internal PO system, you can very easily send that off to a supplier with all the details on. The next piece is that the actual flow for approval has been triggered, and I've used Microsoft Teams for this because most people are working out of Teams. So by embedding an approval app into Microsoft Teams, the individual that it's gone to, dependent on the business logic now, obviously in this demo it's just me, but in the approvals they can then see that they have been asked to approve a PO, and it's showing there at the top of the screen as requested. And they can then click into that PO, and from it they can see all the detail. So they can see, for example, who would have requested it, what time it was requested, and they can actually see the copy of the purchase order directly in that approval. So there's no searching through emails or searching back into SharePoint to see what's the details of the PO. You can actually see it directly there. If they want to reassign it, they can. They can cancel it, they can create a follow-up as well. So there's a couple more actions if they're not ready to approve or reject straight away. And as you can see from clicking in the link, they can just straight away see a copy of the PO. As mentioned already, there's no searching and going to look for it. And then the final step is just to hit approve if it is approved. And when they hit approve, the individual that raised that is notified and it is then sent off. They've got an email notification, or whichever one you pick, to say your PO has been approved. And you'll see now in a second when we go back to the actual document library in SharePoint, you can see that it's automatically also updated the status of the document as well to reflect approved also. So there you can just see how that AP approval process works. And that same concept can be used if it was maybe a document control approval process, if it was even a HR, maybe some of these different things around parental leave, things like that, if you didn't have a HR system in place. So it can be adapted depending on whatever the approval process is. So that is the first scenario that I wanted to run through with you. Okay. So now let's look at a second scenario. And for any of our lean clients, you're probably familiar with the 6S audit process, or you may have a 5S audit process as well. So this is where we have actually digitalized, in this example, the 6S audit process. Now, this is based on where a client was doing the 6S process, but they were doing it paper-based. And of course, this always brings us to have maybe data entry errors, because people just can perceive things differently and use different terminology as well. There was no real-time analytics. We had a lot of wasted time archiving because people were maybe doing the audits on paper, scanning them in then and storing them somewhere. There was no workflow capability either on it. So in this particular scenario, we actually digitalized the 6S audit process for them. We also built in as a secondary function, which you'll see when I go through it, an action management tool, because as we know, normally when we're carrying out audits, if we notice maybe certain red flag situations or we want to trigger an action improvement, it's great if we can do that at the time of the audit and get it sent off in a workflow to the person that needs to action it. So the demo that I show you, you'll see it is a combination of the two. And then again, we used SharePoint to be able to create PDF outputs and store them centrally of the outcomes of the audits for any future reference. And as I mentioned already, we've got automatic workflows in there. So overall, the benefits was we had consistent data coming back on the audits. We had real-time analytics. That issue escalation was being triggered automatically if people encountered issues or red flags as they were going around the audit. It allows us to support compliance and internal processes. And once again, everything was built using the licenses this organisation already had in place. So they were just maximising the potential of what they had. So we'll just take a look at the 6S demo app now for you. And it should start. So you can see the first thing is that they are selecting a department down the left-hand side. But again, any of these, the logic behind this can be used for all different audits. It doesn't have to be in particular the 6S, but it's just the demo showing that. So we can see the different categories, and then the user can just go through those different categories, and there will be a series of questions as a result of that. You can see there it's customized to show a picture, welcome the user in, so it's got quite a friendly user interface. And again, it can be branded and coloured for your own organisation. So as we move through the questions, the first starting point, oh yes, sorry, it's showing me there. It actually forces a standard of work. So if you don't do the audit in the standard it's supposed to be done, it will force you to do it as well. So what's happening here is we're just going through, we're answering the predefined questions on the audit. In the background, there's actually a point system going into play. So you can see it's put the mandatory warning message to say you can't go any further because you've not completed all the questions there. So it's really forcing that compliance and making sure that we answer everything and do it correctly. There's a tooltip built in there as well, so you can use this to give people instructions and more information. So all of this we can build in just like you would have as normal features in some of the software as a service you guys may already be running for different things. Once we've answered all our questions, we can put in maybe some findings in there if we wish. And then we can move forward to the next one again. So we're just moving forward through all the different categories there, answering all the questions accordingly. I'm just speeding it up a bit now for you because I know the 6S has quite a few different sections in it. But as mentioned already, this can be used across any sort of audit procedure. And then you just write in your findings if there is any findings. So we can see as well the points are being calculated at the top based on what we have populated in the background. The improvement point, this is where we're kicking in a second feature because somebody's noticed that there's an improvement point, and what's happened is when they have filled that in, it has gone off and it is added to an action tracker in the background that is obviously managed by somebody else and ran by somebody else. So that is all done, and we've come to the end of our audit. We've got a total score. We can then submit that score through. That score has now been submitted. And the last part of it then is that you can go back into SharePoint, into the document library, and then you'll be able to see any of your audit reports that you have created, and they are saved centrally for easy reference. So it should just show you now in a second. We'll just show you a copy of an audit report, just so it gives you an idea of what it looks like. And you can see there, it's showing anything that we would have typed into findings. It's showing the different scores and who completed it at the top. So that is just the Success Audit app. But as I mentioned, excuse me, as I mentioned, it can be adapted for any sort of maybe internal audit process you may have. Okay, so I will just go on to the final user scenario, and I'm just going to check time to make sure we're doing okay time, and I think we are.
Yeah. Sorry, Lisa, just before you go on there, I think you answered
Yes.
it in your last bit there, but there was a question in about your audit app there. So they're just wondering, can it be changed to health and safety or an energy audit app? And if it was a yes or no answer instead of a rating of 1 to 0. I'll let you answer, but I think I know the answer already. Yeah, it can be changed, but
It can, absolutely. All of those questions were just for demo purposes. So they can reflect whatever questions you like. And in terms of the scoring, it can reflect whatever you like. It can be multiple choice. It can be, as you said, 1, 2, 3, whatever. Yes, it is. And it can be adapted for whatever audit process. Yeah, absolutely.
thank you.
So the last one, just to show you guys, is around a skills matrix training system. So one of the things, and I'm sure Pat probably sees this as well, when we visit clients, a huge thing is around training these days, you know, and trying for people to keep up to date with different training skills. And I guess we've got two types of nearly training going on in organisations. We have this whole piece around the core skills that are required to do the job. And then there's the whole piece of trying to upskill our workforce in terms of different soft skills, whether that be in technical areas of using Microsoft, for example, or maybe leadership skills or that side of things. And what we found was one of the big issues for organisations was, one, putting training at the forefront of what they do. And secondly, them being able to see across an organisation where are the skills, you know. So say, for example, if they're trying to manage resources, how can I quickly see who may have such and such a skill because we're going to be short in this area? And really try and create that environment of cross training. So this particular client had no process to record training, full stop. There was no visibility on what skills were across the organisation. And when I say skills, I am referring to, you know, on the job training skills there. And in general, there was probably just a bit of a lack of focus across the organisation on training. Now, a lot of organisations do have learning management systems as well, already built in, you know, which offer a solution around training, but we decided to go down the route of designing and building something within the Microsoft platform that gave that dual functionality of both the on-the-job core skill training and the soft skills. So what this next platform I'm going to show you is this skills matrix system. It is using Power Apps to give that nice user interface. It's providing a sign off for skills visibility as well. So there is a signature feature on it. We have embedded it into a SharePoint site because most of you may be familiar with using SharePoint for document libraries. However, there's some great features in where you can use SharePoint also to embed video content and things like that. So, we've put a complimentary SharePoint site in there to house video content for people so they can have real-time learning. And then we've built in, using Power Automate flows, we've actually created a certification process as well. So the whole benefits around this was, first of all, it created a focus on learning and skill enhancement across the organisation. It gave us visibility on skill gaps in the different areas, allowing the organisation to manage resources more effectively. You'll see in a minute, it actually created a standard to work to as well, because there's work instructions built into it. And as I've ended the last two scenarios on, and I don't mean to keep reiterating this, but again, it was using... Oh, somebody needs to go on mute there.
I'm in another work. I'm coming to her next now,
Are
Sam.
we
Yeah.
able to mute her?
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay. And the very final last piece is, once again, it was just maximizing the potential of the Microsoft licenses they had. So they didn't need to go out and invest in an LMS learning management system and incur more cost around subscription for that, because they could get what they wanted using this Microsoft solution. So we'll go on to the last demo video. It is a little bit long, just because there's a few little features of it, but hopefully we won't keep you too much longer. So you can see here, SharePoint site. It's all focus around learning, the different buttons customized. We've got some live learning events showing for people down at the bottom. We can embed any of our learning content. So this, you can see you can have different categories of courses. And then when you go into those different courses, you can go in and actually see the video content. So this is just an example of a technical course directory, helping people understand OneDrive better. And we've just embedded some video content in there, again, using Stream, which you have access to as part of your licenses, directly into the SharePoint sites. So that is allowing us to teach people. The next thing is that you create an employee file. So when anybody joins the organisation, we add in an employee record so that they can get set up on the system. So this is what's happening here. And this is just a simple Power Apps screen using it there. Adding them in, you can add in your drop-down options again, pre-populated, so we have no data errors. And you can also upload any particular files. So whether it be, I don't know, a certificate of some kind that the employee had before they joined, or that sort of stuff. What's happening then when we create that employee file, it's creating in a secure location, a document library under that employee name. It's adding in any attachments that I would have just added in just then. And we will use that to house different documents about that employee further down the line. The next step is adding a skill completion record. Now, of course, these don't all happen in the one. So once the employee then is done a skill, we can go in here, we can select from the different departments and areas. They can be categorized to whatever level you like, because you'll have pre-populated it with the different skill detail. And you'll see it actually shows the skill detail in there. So that's what I mean about creating a standard to how the work is carried out, because it is containing work instructions. So once you've picked the employee that you want to say has completed it, you've picked your department, your area, your skill name, you can then proceed to sign off. So there's two types of sign-offs. The employee signing off themselves to acknowledge that they've completed the training. And then once they've done that, the next sign off is around the supervisor that did the training, that they are signing off to say that that individual did. So as you can see in this particular scenario, I am the supervisor and I am also the employee, but obviously in outside of the demo, it would be pulling in live names. So what's happened here now is I have now created that skill completion record in the system. And the last thing then is that we go in to the main system where you can see all the skills in one place. So what should happen now, the video just frozen. Just move it along. I think the video is just frozen, guys, so bear with me 1 second. It doesn't seem to be changing for us. Okay, if you give me 1 second, I'm just going to stop sharing and I'm going to actually bring up the live screen just to show you this last bit. So bear with me 1 second.
While you're doing that, Lisa, we've had one more question in from Liam, and it's actually about the Success Audit app that you had just before there. He's just wondering, can you upload pictures? So would you be able to take a picture on your phone and upload it through the app?
Yes, you absolutely would be able to do that. Yeah, as well. So you can see we had the upload feature there a second ago in Ignite. You can add in that upload field as well at any point in time. So yeah, and that's a good idea actually on the pictures to have that as a feature. So I am just going to give you guys a quick look at the skill set and Pat, if you don't mind, just making sure that you can see my screen and it's the correct screen.
It is, yeah, you're all good.
Okay, perfect, right. So guys, you can see here, this is the main sort of area of the skill set. You can look at things across a different ranges because this is where it's really about searching for the skills. So you can look at it from an employee point of view, a job skill point of view, an area point of view, or right across any particular courses. So if we just go in and we take a quick look at an employee, you can see here we've got these different lists of employees coming up. We can see how they've maybe scored in any courses that we've done because the courses actually have a little quiz at the end. So then depending on how many you get right, it's applying a course. I can go straight into my document library in SharePoint from this point as well by clicking this folder. But let's go down now and let's see, you can search different employees as well. So if we just go into the different ones, let's go into myself here. I can see straight away the different scoring points. I can click here, and what happens is this is where I start to see the skills matrix piece. So I can see under Lisa Finn, for example, these are all the core skills that I've done in relation to the role that I carry out. If I hit the star, I can filter between the soft skill courses that I've already done. And you can also see we can set expiry dates in there. So then there can be automatic notifications for if maybe, you know, after 12 months, they need to repeat a particular course. All of that can be built in as well. So we can see straight away quite clearly the difference between our core essential skills to carry out our role and also our maybe more soft skills, or maybe if it's other company introductions and internal training that you might want them to do from a company standpoint. If we just go back to the home screen as well, so if I'm coming into this as a supervisor and I need to see who's got a particular job skill because I know Tom next week is going to be on holidays and I need somebody to cover the forklift driving or whatever it might be, I can then come into job skill. I can go and filter through the different maybe areas. I can pick up what my skill name is, and then I can see straight away who has that skill, who their supervisor is. If, for example, nobody has that skill, I know I've got a skills gap there and I need to potentially get some people trained up because I don't have enough failover. And again, it's the same sort of searches. It's whatever way you want to look at it. Do you want to look at it from an area? Yeah, I want to see how many people in the area of quotations, and in quote creation in particular, has training, and I can see all those different people. So that works the same right the way across, same in the core skills. It's all very similar. That you can see there Again, it's just all about searching. And you may say, well, I only want to search under 2 things or 3 things and I don't need all these buttons, but this is trying to show you that you can search in a multiple way. And then the final piece, just to show you guys, is that when you actually go back into employee files, that, when you complete a skill, a sign off on a skill, what it actually is doing is also generating a certificate and saving that in your document library. So say, for example, this just gives you an idea of what it looks like. And again, it can be customized if people feel they'd like their own personal branding on it. But again, it just shows you that you can generate different outputs and all that side of things. So what I'm going to do is just flick back to the slides now. So bear with me 1 second while I stop sharing. And we flick back to the slides.
Just to remind people while Lisa's doing that, if you have any questions, you can keep firing them into the chat there and we'll try and get to them.
So Pat, is the slide showing now?
It is, yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll hand you back over to Pat again. But just as I said, in terms of those use case scenarios, it's really to show you guys the potential in what you have in your licenses. By combining the different solutions together, you can really drive some great efficiencies. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. That's great. I think it's great for people to be able to actually see the apps in action compared to me at the start just talking about them. Great. So we're just going to go through a couple of other of the digital services we offer. Some of you might already know, we might have worked with you already on some of them. But just for those who haven't, I'll just quickly go through, just talking through them. So we have digital strategy, we have process optimization, data management and reporting. That'd be something I'd specialize in. Solution design and development, system scoping and implementing support, and then finally our digital training. So if anybody's interested in any of these or to find out more, you can either visit our website or you can get in touch with us and we can give you a bit more detail and see how we can help you out on any of those topics. But finishing on the digital training, I think, Lisa, we have an exciting course coming up that you might want to speak to the guys about.
Yes, thanks, Pat. So yes, just one last thing is around, it's one around the whole piece, as we said, creating digital processes, but there is a lot around now just even people being aware of the different tools that are available to them. They may have the expertise in-house as well to do some of this themselves if they have the right training in place. So we get asked all the time, I go into organizations all the time and I see people even using SharePoint, but some are using OneDrive, some are using SharePoint, some don't know the difference between them. So we've decided to launch a range of courses. It's a 6-module course and it's just really introducing people to this. It will be delivered remotely and it's around just really making people aware in using these tools and how to use them in the most collaborative, safe way as well, in terms of sharing and things like that. So there is that courses will be coming up in February. If anybody is interested, then, reach out to the LBS team and we can give you more details.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. So that's kind of the conclusion for us. I think we've answered most of the questions as we've gone throughout the presentation. So if anybody has any more questions off the cuff, we'd be happy to answer them. Or if you think of something later on, you can get in touch with us. The chat will be left open for the next few hours. So you can always fire in and we'll get back to you. But other than that, I think I can give you back 4 minutes of your time. Unless anybody has any questions, myself and Lisa will be happy to answer. No. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, you know a bit more about Power Apps and how they can help your business. So please feel free to reach out and get in contact with us. And other than that, the webinar will be made available after the session, we'll give you an email and we can tell you a bit more about that upcoming training also. And stay posted on our LinkedIn and YouTube. You'll see the video going up there shortly also. So thank you all.